What's going on, team? Welcome to an episode of the Keep Going Podcast, Season 2. This is your co-host, Luke Wheat, coming out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Before the show starts, make sure to follow us on our socials, okay? Twitter, the Keep Going Pod, Insta, the KG Podcast, and YouTube at the KG Pod. Just a reminder that we are not psychiatrists and not psychologists, just a couple ex-athletes trying to make a difference and end the stigma of mental health. Thank you guys for listening, and let's get to the show.
That keep going moment.
My keep going moment.
That's my keep going moment.
Let's keep
What's
going.
going on, guys? Pat O'Malley with the Keep Going Podcast, athletes shining a light on mental health. I'm juiced up. I'm in the Speedway Cafe parking lot out here in Roscoe, Illinois. I got Jackie Tripp, Grant Cox. What's going on, Jackie?
Not much. I'm at Stony Brook and you're not here, so it's a sad day, but I get to talk to you on Zoom, so I can't complain. Still get to see your face.
Oh my goodness. I would way rather be in Stony Brook, but like Speedway Cafe, probably a close second.
Yeah,
to.
not bad.
Not bad. Grant, what's up with you, my boy?
What's going on, brothers? Everything is good, man. Another great day. Grateful to be on with you guys. So let's get into it, man.
No, every day is a blessing, man. It's definitely exciting to hear about your perspective, hear about your journey, especially everything you've been doing. But before I go into that, we do kind of a goofy thing. We talk about like the episode number and like the jersey number. So I got to shout out Anthony Rizzo, 2016 World Series champion for today's episode. Jackie, do you have a 44 in mind?
No, I meant to look into that earlier and I couldn't think of anybody from Boston. With my luck, it'll come to me after the episode, but you got it with Rizzo for now.
Grant, you got a 44 in mind? I got one more, but go ahead. You got one?
Yeah, I don't. Rizzo's a good one. No, man, not off the top of my head. This one caught me by surprise. Usually I'm pretty good at this, but who's your other one?
I think Hank Aaron wore 44.
Oh, dude.
I think he did.
Right. I think he did.
And yeah, the reason why Anthony,
Something.
I used to actually work camps with Anthony back in the day. Just a fantastic human being, and like
Where
everything.
at?
So I worked with the USA baseball camps with him for a long time, and like he used to work with like all the little kids, and like he used to pitch to him. It was great. Anthony's a great dude, but nothing too college level or high school level, but usually the little guys. So awesome stuff. But yeah, I'll get back on topic, but definitely want to shout that out. And we are a man down today. Giving my best to Luke Wheat. He's a little bit under the weather, so hopefully Luke feels great. We're never the same without him, but hopefully Grant can make up for two people. We're hoping he can bring the
That's the plan, man. Hate that he's not here, but we'll get it done.
No, we
Sorry,
always
where are
do.
you coming out of today? Where are you located, Grant?
Where am I?
Yeah.
Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
making up. At least we have one nice Southern voice here still.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need it. We need it bad. It's not going to be me and Jackie by any means.
Yeah. Jackie, where are you?
I'm from Massachusetts, but right now I'm at Stony Brook in New York, Long Island.
Gotcha, man.
No, beautiful, beautiful. Well, hey, I do this every week as well, and Jackie knows the deal after like jumping on with us as a guest and now being a host with us, as you can tell. We do our mental health of the week. So I want to touch on with Jackie first. What did you do this week for your mental health?
I'd say I did a few things, but the most important was no matter how difficult it was at times this week, that I tried my best to be open about how I felt to the people closest to me instead of keeping it to myself at trying to spare their convenience. So just trying to be open as much as I can and have difficult conversations no matter how I'm feeling, and not just putting on a mask, because I need to walk the talk that I talk to and not just tell everybody to talk about their feelings. I need to do that as well for myself. So I've been trying to work on that.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic reminder. I think the big thing is like sometimes when you're a mental health advocate, you get put into situations yourself that are really tough. And you have to be like, not only is it my decision, but it's also affecting other people and listeners and all that. I wouldn't say it's a pressure thing, but it's definitely look in the mirror like, I represent this. I got to get back to what I'm trying to do. I think everyone will see mine on social media this week, but I did a suicide awareness walk yesterday in Rockford. Myself, my girlfriend's dog Sophie came with me, my mom and her boyfriend. You talk about an uplifting event on kind of a somber day. That would be how I describe it. lots of bright colors, lots of people trying to get out there and spread the word and the stigma, a lot of stuff that we're trying to do. So I thought that was fantastic. But had to shout out the American American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. I always mess up the F and the S. But yeah, they do a fantastic job. This is my 10th event with them. They've done a fantastic job. So definitely want to shout them out. But Grant, what'd you do this week?
Man, I would say for me, my biggest thing, and this is something that, I don't really miss on, is I find when I kind of find myself, kind of gloomy and down, it's because I'm kind of getting off of my routine. And my routine, is kind of tailored towards, keeping my mind sharper, keeping me focused. So I'm huge into fitness, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing every day. But sticking to my script, and I write everything down. So as long as I stay by that, which is working out, me and my girlfriend talk about it. My girlfriend's actually a mental health counselor. So
shout her out.
Yeah.
Shout her out.
Let's go.
Man, Chandler. Yeah, that's my baby, man. She graduated from Clemson with her master's in clinical mental health counseling. So she, obviously there's like a board with that, an exam with that, and she passed that in May, at the end of May. And I believe this is her second month. She just finished her second month. She's at a smaller clinic here in Greenville. But we need more of it. It's definitely something that it's a growing field in what she's doing. And we need more resources so people can go to. So we talk, man. But for me, it's talking to my family once a day, my mom, dad once a day, working out, that kind of stuff keeps me in line. I'm also huge faith based, so I read Bible in the mornings, and I'm not perfect, but as long as I'm checking off these boxes that I write down, I'm sharper throughout the day. I don't find myself getting down or anything like that. So,
yeah, I got a couple things already. I'm already loving this. Couple things. I got to shout out my guy Glenn over at My Field Goals podcast. He always said a test of a good podcast is when you're finding future guests while you're interviewing someone. I'm already thinking about having Chandler on. Like, that's amazing. First and foremost,
you should, man. She's she's very sweet. She's very authentic. And, what I've realized, like, in her field is everyone is coming, to her for some kind of healing, some kind of clarity, some kind of something to help them with their mental health. That's why she's there. And so she's hearing, these people's worst days. So it's super important to go into a career like that and you feel like God put you there for a reason, because it's a lot. I mean, you hear everything, from and yeah, have her on. I'll tell her right now. She's actually inside. But she works, and this may be, don't check me on this, but she works with kind of younger, like your 8 to like 14, 15-year-olds, but she will work older. So she, you hear it from kids, you hear it from parents, you hear it from, couples and stuff like that, just their worst days. And so she's kind of there to fill that gap to get them on a better, light at the end of the tunnel path. So it's important, man.
No, it's super well spoken. I'll kick it over to Jackie. I know you mentioned in your own journey that your faith has been a big part of this. The weightlifting has been a big part of this. Baseball's been a big part of this. Daily habits that you're putting together. Do you think consistency is the biggest thing for you, like your routine?
Dude, yes. Consistency across the board, like in anything, man. Like in this podcast, if you guys are wanting to ride this podcast up the charts, man. It's just consistency. You're not going to get anywhere, kind of doing it sometimes, or doing it only when you feel like it. Consistency and discipline, although we aren't perfect, motivation kind of runs out of steam, runs out of gas. So you kind of have to rely on your consistency and on your discipline to get to that end goal. Sometimes sometimes you're the only person that can see that goal. And sometimes you only have a couple people around you that actually believe in that goal. So yeah, man, consistency, staying consistent. Like for me, staying consistent with the Lord is important. And sometimes I find it hard, like opening the Bible, reading it, but at the end of the day, there's nothing. A, I'm supposed to do it. I know I'm supposed to do it, and B, there's no better feeling, kind of doing something that you don't necessarily want to do, but you know that you need to. But absolutely, man, consistency, staying disciplined. I forgot who said it. I think it was Mike Tyson or something, and I'm gonna butcher this, but the only way to, you got to be able to do it. What did he say? He said you got to be able to work. What did he say, man? Even though you hate it, you gotta love it in some way or something like that. I forget what he said, man. I just butchered that.
No, don't about it, because I'm about to butcher one and then pass it over to Jackie. Inky Johnson's got a similar quote about how you have to do things long after the original feeling when your started is done.
Yeah.
And I think wrong, because I'm a man of faith myself, and sometimes getting down on my knees to pray, I have to fight myself. Like that's a normal thing for a lot of people. If it's faith, if it's the universe, if it's everyday tasks, I think it's really tough sometimes to do the bare minimum sometimes. So I'm Jackie, what do you got?
Well, I think it's a commonality, and you hear people that are sort of in this realm of mental health and just success and of value in general, that the motivation is going to last like a tenth of the time that the discipline is going to last. There's a quote that's on the TV at my gym, and it's something along, I'm going to butcher this quote now, but it's something along the lines of like, your body doesn't care if you're motivated, it's going to do the work no matter what. So like, whether the motivation is there or not, your body and your mind can still perform. So it's really just about having the discipline to do it. Again, even if you hate doing it in the moment, long-term longevity wise, it's what you need. And I think that misconception is kind of fading away. I think people used to think you needed to be motivated all the time, but I feel as if post-pandemic and as mental health conversations are arising, people are realizing that it's more discipline based than anything.
Yeah. And this wouldn't be a Clemson episode if I didn't quote Rich, because it's so funny. He says in our first episode, leave no doubt in your preparation. You saw it yesterday on display with Oregon football. You have a team that left no doubt in their preparation, and their head coach, who I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now, gets in the locker room before and goes, we are that team, but I don't really need to remind you, because we know that we're that team. But just in case you guys have any doubts of who we are that team today, and we're going to continue to be that team. I thought that was powerful. I got the chills. It wasn't a rah, we're going to punch them in the mouth. It was, here's a reminder, we're that team. I thought that was powerful. I don't know if you guys saw that clip. Unbelievable.
Yeah, man. I did see that. And, to kind of go off that, to, I guess, align it with us, is I think that's when people that I've talked to who, have struggled is, or they play a sport and they put their identity in a sport, like myself, never forgetting who you are and that you represent something good, is sometimes forgotten about, or like you forget that about yourself. You forget who you are. You forget that you are important. You forget that, people need you and that people love you when you're going through difficult times, or you're just kind of in a rough place, man. But it's also, at the same token, it's also important to have the right people around you who are constantly lifting you up, who are like constantly reminding you, like that coach did to his team. Like, I don't have to tell you this, but I just want to remind you that y'all are that. You guys are this. And it's important, you know, in life, even in life, man, to have people around you that are like, hey, dude, like, you're important and I love you. It's important, man. And because, you know, and there's a stigma out there with men, and men in general, they have a hard time speaking about certain things, and then you only catch them when they're at the lowest of the low. So I think it's important to have conversations and remind people who they are, remind people that they're important, as that coach did, man. That's why college sports like is so, because I'm glad, you know, that it's college football season. Obviously, college football is like the biggest college like sport across the board. So you're able to see stuff like that. But that happens all the time in locker rooms. Like coaches, I mean, it could be baseball, it could be tennis. Like, don't forget who you are. Don't forget that you have people around you that love you. So that's important, man. It is. But yeah, dude, I saw that yesterday and it was awesome.
Yeah. Jackie, go ahead.
Well, that just reminded me of what Pat says a lot. I don't know where that quote came from, Pat, but you'll know when I say it. It's speak up, not man up.
Yeah.
Where'd that quote come from, Pat? Because you've hit me with that like a bunch of times when we talked about this.
Honestly, I can't cite it. It's been on, I've heard it on multiple podcasts, and I always say it because I love Grant's point here about speaking up, but communicating with your support group, with your professionals. I think oftentimes the big thing in the stigma is everyone speak up, and they go to one person, and that person isn't going to give them the time of day. No disrespect to anybody, but 5 years ago, I wasn't educated on this enough to give you any criticism, any feedback. So my message here, and I'm loving this, Grant, you're a well-spoken dude. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's my thing would be talk to more than one person. Talk to your support group, talk to professionals, talk to people in your circle and outside, and really take bits and pieces from everybody, because this is not a cookie cutter stigma. It's going to be about seeing kind of what's out there and what's best for you. I think that's so important. Jackie, anything on that? Or
No,
Grant,
same thing. And you need people to lean on, whether it's two people, whether it's a bigger group of people, and it just starts with the small things, just checking in, like send a text, make a phone call. It's uncomfortable and it's awkward, but I think the more that, at least my personal experience, the more that I've reached out and checked in on people in my life that I never would have had a mental health conversation with, you realize that everybody deals with it to some extent, whether it's anxiety, depression, PTSD, or it's just little things here and there. Everybody to some extent is dealing with this. Like Pat said, it's not cookie cutter. So you need to realize that, one, it's okay not to be okay, but two, it's okay to not be okay and talk about it. Not just not be okay and accept it within yourself, but to not be okay and to be able to like express that you're not okay.
That's it. That's it right there. I couldn't have said it better. And Grant, if you don't mind, I want to segue here. Because obviously with our kind of demographic, it's a lot of athletes. For
sure, man.
And Grant, obviously reading up on you, doing my research the same way Jackie did, the same way Luke did, you have a crazy experience as an athlete.
Yeah.
And we don't say things like, Grant, I want to hear everything. I want to hear nitty gritty. Tell me your story and what happened there, and tell your story. I want to hear it. I know our listeners want to do too.
Yeah. And yeah, you guys, as I go, if y'all have any questions, always let me know, man. But sometimes I don't know where to start, but I kind of always, start with, Clemson for me was a dream school. And, I committed to Clemson when I was 15 years old. And, I'm able to kind of help people in the recruiting process, but my recruiting process was very, and I mean this like I mean this humbly, but it was very like short because once Clemson came, I accepted. That was my dream school. Like I just jumped all over it. So like I didn't necessarily have like a long gated, crazy recruiting process. It was a wild like 3 months, but that was pretty much it. Um, but yeah, man, just um, I don't even know, man. I almost signed out of high school with the Cincinnati Reds. I was drafted in the 7th round, and then I was actually called again in the 11th round by the Giants, and told them that I was going to Clemson and hope to chat in 3 years. Hopefully, after your junior year, you're eligible, you're able to get drafted, and that's what I told him, and carried on, and you know to this day, I've had about, I believe, 12 surgeries. And I was supposed to have hip replacement surgery actually this past June and chose not to do it because I am 26 and we just didn't feel comfortable doing it. So we just started rehabbing. But man, it was like a domino effect once I did, have my first surgery was a shoulder surgery. And it was just one of those things to where in my mind, the only thing I wanted to do was just become better, faster, stronger than before that surgery. So went down with a surgery, that was my whole mindset. Went down with another surgery, that was my whole mindset. And that compounded to where, man, I was for like 6 different times, I was in the best shape of my life. But my junior season, uh, in a game, just had a crazy, you know, injury. And it ended up being a very rare, a very crazy diagnosis, a very crazy surgery. And I had a mass removed from my leg, a little bit bigger probably than your fist. It's 9 ounces. And, it was scary for us. We weren't sure, but we knew when I was diagnosed with that, I was diagnosed with chronic exertional compartment syndrome. Um, and we knew then I was medically disqualified by the NCAA. This was my junior year. And so I stayed in my senior season, obviously, to graduate and kind of help out with the middle infielders. And, I could talk, forever about this, but this is kind of just like in short. But yeah, man, I mean, you know, obviously it was kind of devastating because baseball is the only thing I knew. I started playing travel ball when I was 11 and I did it year round until I was 22 years old. So to have it taken away from you, or 21 years old, have it taken away from you, I really had to look myself in the mirror. But I never really struggled with like an identity thing. Um, Baseball was my identity for sure. There's no doubt about that. But when I was going through all my surgeries, the one thing that kept me going, like to this day, is I was just glad that this was all happening to me and not one of my teammates because I love my teammates. I had a great relationship with all my guys. And I was just glad that this was happening to me and not them. Like, I'm glad that they were able to keep playing and that I was not able to. There was some sense of, there was some sense of like peace that it was like, it was okay with me. And that was the only thing that would get me through it.
Grant, I got to cut you off. That's one of the most selfless things I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, man, it was the only thing that was keeping me going. There were 2 things, and that was the number one thing without a doubt. And then I remember for some reason I was like, what am I going to tell my kids one day? It's like one day I'm going to have kids and they're going to ask me about something, and I'm like, what am I going to tell them when they ask me about this? And so I thought the way I handled it, and still do to this day, was like the best way that I knew possible at the time. I wasn't perfect, but it was the best way I knew.
I'm going to cut to Jackie in a second. I have to ask you, how did you do that?
That was my question. So
Yeah, I think Rob.
I'll be honest.
well,
Like,
yeah.
I'll be honest. Like, I had amazing people in my corner. Like, I still to this day I have an amazing family. But dude, it was one thing that just like came upon me. It was like a bird. It was like it just like came over me, and it was all that I could think about. Like, I was just like, man, I used to tell my roommate Jake Higginbotham, I was like, dude, I'm just glad like it's not you, or it's not him, or it's not somebody else on our team. It just, I don't know. That's just something that I kind of just I built it up myself. And with each surgery, like, it was like, okay, because it was me. Like, I was fine with it. I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's weird, but I still think that to this day. So
You Clemson dudes are unreal, man. Go ahead, Jackie.
yeah.
Well,
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Pat says this a lot too, is that sometimes God opens doors in different houses because you said 11 to 22, you're playing baseball year round. So at that point, you spent half your life playing baseball year round, and then it comes to a halt. Did you still were on campus, like living with these guys, going to games, but you weren't able to play?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was locker room every day. You know, it was pretty much the same thing. But, you know, when I was medically disqualified by the NCAA and ACC, it was just, you know, I wasn't able to play. I had no more eligibility left. So yeah, I was just around doing the best that I could. I was still like dealing with, you know, surgeries and stuff. So I was a little slow. But just stuck around and helped the guys with just literally whatever, man. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think that's where like the point that we touch on a lot here is that we hear all these stories, and I think what it comes down to is people come on here like you who have played at a high level, and some of the guys we had on last week, the Peterson brothers, and you talk about playing on a high level, and it's never about like the wins or the stats. It's always about the people around you and like the camaraderie. Because I similar to you, I didn't have an injury of your magnitude, but I stopped playing and I was still around it because my twin sister plays, and it took me. I didn't have your perspective right away. It took me a little while to obviously be okay with it in the identity piece, but I think that you obviously your career didn't go the way you want, but would you say that you learned just like, would you change anything? Would you say that you learned what you believe you should have learned and became the person you should have become because of your injury?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it literally made me who I am.
Mm.
It made me who I am. There's no doubt about that. It kind of instilled stuff in me that I wouldn't have. It didn't happen. Um, and to kind of tie along with that, where I think a lot of my perspective comes from, especially like being at peace with baseball, even though it happened like that. Um, the same day that I was medically disqualified, and you know, this crazy path that you brought up, Anthony Rizzo, because I was gonna say it at the beginning, but I kind of wanted to wait. Um, but my cousin Luke Hoyer was killed in a high school shooting.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
the same day that I was medically disqualified, and this was Valentine's Day of 2018, and Luke was 15. You know, I was 20. Let's see, I was 20 at the time, or 21 at the time. And that morning, me and my mom are at the hospital, and we know the severity of my injury. We know that if I did get diagnosed with this, that I was going to be medically disqualified. And I thought, you know, in a way, you know, I was like, what am I going to do? And then later that day, we find out that, you know, Luke was killed. And from a perspective, your perspective completely flips. And that's kind of when everything changed for me. So I was very at peace with baseball. But you know, when the thing that you know the most, or really two things you know the most, baseball and family, are taken away from you, you know, in the same 24 hours, it's devastating, man. And you my goal was to shed light on Luke, and I was kind of overwhelmed with gratitude because like I was able to play the game of baseball for a long time at a high level. And Luke was 15 and he wasn't able to even, I don't even think he had his driver's license yet. And he hadn't gone to prom. He probably hadn't even gone on like a date or anything like that, or played a season for his sports team, for his high school team. And I'm like, I've gotten to do all that. I guess, in a way I had 6 more years of life, that I experienced at the time. And he wasn't able to do that. So it was one of those things too, to where like I was so grateful, for all of that, even though it was even though my career was cut short, I was overwhelmed that I was able to do a lot of things that I did. So
Yeah, this is incredible. Um man. I said it already, but I'm sorry for your loss. I think those are dark days.
yeah.
I think it's super powerful to have guys like you on, Grant, and like guys and girls that we've had in the past that like will talk about this kind of stuff. It really shows athletes and other people that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm getting super emotional. I gotta stop crying over here. I think it's another quote. I'm a man of faith myself, where a guy's running on the beach, right? And he's yelling out for God. He's wondering where he's at, and he's blah, 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 blah. And he's looking for the steps next to him, right? And he goes, God, where are you? Like, I just need someone next to me. And God goes, yeah, man, I was carrying you. I was guiding your steps. I'm always like, that's what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling that you've been able to guide families. I shouldn't say families, but family members, friends, teammates, say it, based on what you've gone through and the gratitude that you take on your daily life with faith as your base and just good values. And I commend you for that, man. Wow. I don't know how I got to that, but that's what spoke through me. Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, everything Luke said, I second that. And I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm glad that I can't even speak to what you and your family have gone through, but I respect you and am glad that you were able to speak to that today, in the sense that there's a bigger picture. And when I was on your Instagram reading through some of your posts, you made a post about your cousin, and I was in awe of the way that you're able to speak to it and remember him in this light, in the sense that in one of your posts you wrote, like, just be grateful that you woke up this morning, because like a lot of people didn't, and a lot of people do, and they don't realize that it's their last day here. So we as humans, and I remember reading that and just being like, yeah, and sometimes you need to hear that from a perspective like yours, because I think people get so angry and life moves so fast, and you get mad that you don't have a certain job yet, or a certain car, or you got cut from the team, or you had an injury. But when you're able to shed light on stories like yours and talk about it in the manner that you do and shed the light you do, it helps put it in perspective to a lot of people. So I have a lot of love and respect for you for the way you just spoke to that.
That's it.
So thank you.
And I'll let you go on this. We ask our guests every week, obviously, what their keep going moment is. If you've already gone over it today, awesome. But if you haven't, take some FaceTime, man. What's your keep going moment? Like, what has been that make or break thing for you? And if it's something we've touched on, great. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, to go off that, my just kind of in short, and I could literally talk about this for literally forever, all day. But and this is like kind of a lot, kind of deep, but my keep going, it's not just like just one thing. It's a really a magnitude of things, but it all kind of ties into my keep going. Like the reason why I do things, the reason why I literally keep going, is my hitting coach, or my a coach that really helped me with, to grow as a player, to grow as a person, to really push myself. And he helped me with like recruiting. His name was Timothy Bright, and Timothy Bright had stage 4 colon cancer, and Tim passed away. My hitting coach, who was my hitting coach since 8th grade all the way to when he passed away, was Jeff Young. I had a good friend that played baseball at Clemson, Blake Holiday. He was there for a year, and then he transferred to Erskine, and he was in an ATV accident, and Blake passed away. And then Luke passed away. So, and then you bring an injury on top of that, to where I was told that I wouldn't run again. I was going to struggle. And now I like run whenever I want. I ran 9 miles with Chandler yesterday. That's like my keep going, is like I got people to make proud. And it's not necessarily like I used to have the mindset like I'm trying to prove people wrong, but I've kind of adopted the mindset that I'm just trying to prove myself right. And that's my keep going. Is I've lost people, which is, I don't know if you can see, but I have just tattoos, and it's pretty much them. It's like basically like a piece of the people that I've lost in my life. And that's my keep going, man. Just gotta, want to make them proud, want to honor them, in the life that they lived. But at the same time, I know that they want me to go, to like keep going. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think a lot of McKenna Davidson's episode, what can I do? You could easily take a back seat on a lot of this, right? And go, come on, man. I was drafted twice. I committed before I drove a car. You don't know who I. That is not who you are. Who you are is someone that wakes up every day with an opportunity to be a servant leader and impact people. And what can you do to kind of prove your worth here? I think I'm extremely touched. I'm absolutely, I've said it 5 times, I'm loving this, man. So thank you for being so candid and transparent. Jackie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And beyond, obviously, to talk about baseball and everything, I know this is what I've got from the episode, and I know our listeners are going to come on today and they're going to get a message. And you've had so much adversity and loss in your life, but it's stories of people like you that a stranger might hear, somebody who's mutual friends with you might hear, and it might give them a push that they need to keep going. And I said it again, I'll say it again, just the way that you came on here and shined your light on your story and just put it in the perspective that you have. Is there any like quote or words of perspective that kind of kept you going or keep you going? Like if you could, obviously you can't sum your story into one line, but I usually ask people like if there's a quote or a phrase that they go by when it comes to the perspective within their life and their story.
Yeah, what defines you? I like that.
So there's 2. So I have 2, and I actually have a short quote. I don't know if you can see it, but it's tattooed literally right there. And it was my second tattoo. My first one was Timothy Bright. Timothy's on my wrist right there. And it says, "Don't let your struggle become your identity." And that's a quote from, I know y'all mentioned Inky Johnson. That's a quote from Inky.
Of course.
And he said, "Don't let your struggle become your identity." And when I was injured, because obviously Inky had, a crazy crazy injury, and literally
Yeah.
almost died. He said that, and I kind of dove into it, and like I would listen to his speeches, like his hour-long like recorded speeches. I would listen when he was at like Ole Miss or somewhere. I'd listen to the whole thing, and he always touched on don't let your struggle become your identity. And no matter how high the highs are, how low the lows are, you know, you can't let what you're going through dictate who you are, because it's life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, man. But if you can kind of stay at a happy medium and do your best and not let the circumstances around you dictate your mindset. And it's hard, right? Like sometimes stuff happens and it controls us, and we're human, and hopefully we learn from it. But not letting our struggles become who we are is essential to making a pathway and kind of being a trailblazer for people to follow, because life is hard. It's going to continue to be hard, but let's not, it's not who I am, and I'm not going to let it define me. So that was one. That's my first one. And my second one, I actually recently adopted this, and it's really cool. I heard it. I'm trying to think of the guy who said this. I can't remember, but it's called For the Gold. And what it basically means is, in life, no matter what you're doing, whether it be y'all's podcast or in business or in relationships, you want to be the best. You want to go for the gold and for the gold. So I think it's pretty cool.
Love both of those. All right. I like I said, this has been a fantastic 30 minutes. This is one of those interviews that I could literally chop it up about God knows what for the next 3 hours. I won't.
Right.
I'll be conscious of your time and your family Sunday and you doing things the way you do things. What we've done since Mikey Tosado's episode is we always give our guests that flowers moment. So like something that you haven't said yet that you wanted to say, like we always feel like we get rolling and we might have missed something. So anything that you want to say to our listeners to wrap us up today?
I always have something to say. So
I love that about you, man.
I know.
I love you, dude. You have no
Yeah,
idea.
I know I have something. Man, I think what we all need to do better at is everyone. If someone came down and gave me a mic and said, Grant, you're speaking to the world right now, like however many billion, 7 billion, 8 billion, however many people are in the
Grant,
world.
if I had that mic, my boy, I'd give it to you. I'm giving you the best I got.
I would I would say that everyone has to be, forgiveness is so essential to life. Being gentle to other people is so essential to life, man. Like, you never know what someone's going through. You never know, like, at work, what someone just dealt with that night or that morning. And you might be the light that they need. You might be the only one that has the opportunity to shed a light on them that day. Or if you're letting everything around you dictate who you are, you could kind of drive them into a more worse place than they already are. So you never know what someone's going through, man. And no matter what your day is, no matter what you're going through personally, you have to have people that walk this earth that are servants, that are here for other people. And I know, like, mental health is huge, but sometimes you gotta you know, for me, you have to obviously deal with it, talk about it, but if you have to grab someone else's bag and carry it for them, that's what you do. That's what you have to do. And that would be my message, man. Like, you never know what someone's going through, man. Shed a light, you know, make an impact, make sure it's a positive impact, because when the world's falling apart and everything's falling apart, you want people to run to you for help. You want people to run like, hey, Grant, I trust you. Hey, Jackie, hey, Pat, I trust you. I want you to lead the way. You want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So you want to.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just to touch on that, like you never know what people are going through. I think that there are certain people in life that, like you came on here today, Grant, and you don't know what I'm going through, and you just when you said the quote, "Don't let your struggle become your identity." Like I needed to hear that, and you didn't even know I needed to hear that. You know what I mean? It's just a way. If you can go about life with the perspective of like everyone I meet is fighting a battle I don't know about, then you'll get a long way. Like when I was out in Chicago visiting Pat this summer, there was a woman, we were grabbing smoothies, and there was a woman, and Pat complimented her smile, and like something lit up in her, and you could just tell she like needed to hear that. Like so like everywhere you go, if you can just leave with one compliment, like you don't know what that person's going through. That might have been the push to keep them going to work that day or to keep showing up for their family. Like it's little things, and that's why human connection is so important. And like you said, forgiveness and being gentle, because at the end of the day, you never know. So thank you for touching on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, and I'll put a bow on this thing by saying, and I've said it on other episodes, if you have a chance to be somebody's hero, go be it. A hero doesn't have to be for a lifetime. For a person, it can be as simple as what Jackie just said or what you've mentioned throughout this podcast. You can be a hero in that moment, and you could be that hero. I think that's, people just sometimes think that you have to be Superman day one. It's not like that.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
be that hero in that moment is my challenge for our listeners today. And Grant Cox, man, I'm not done with you, man. I think we got more to do here. We got more impact to make. We got more people to lead. And we got to get Chandler on first and foremost.
Yep.
Another recommendation you have, because anybody that hangs out with you, I'd use different terminology if we went on a kids podcast. Anybody that's with you, man, I want that energy, man. So I appreciate you. Jackie, what's up with you?
Yeah, anybody that speaks your language, send them your way.
Yeah. No.
If the Patriots didn't have to play the Jets today, we'd be rolling for another few hours.
That's right.
That is the darn truth. And Grant, I'll let you get back to it.
Thanks,
I appreciate you. I appreciate who you are, and our listeners feel the same, man. Thanks again for everything.
Thanks, you.
Guys, man. God bless y'all. And I'm always here, man. Let's get Chandler on and let's continue to make an impact.
Let's do it.
Above all else, baby, let's keep going, all right?
Have a great day, guys. Have a great week.
You too. Enjoy your Sunday.